Hi, everybody. It's Jessica Stone at Stansberry Research, and I'm joined now by Scott Garliss, the editor of Stansberry Newswire. And Scott, got a question for you. Can the markets predict who will win this upcoming presidential election?
Yes, they can.
Interesting. So I think a lot of people are going to wonder what you mean by that. Let's get into some details now. We have obviously talked about how markets seem to be warming to a Biden presidency. We've done a couple of sessions on why Wall Street likes Biden, why they still like Biden, despite some of these very high tax of the rich. And I'm not a friend of corporate America kind of words we've had from him on the campaign trail. Does the fact that Wall Street is warming to Biden, does that mean or tell us in and of itself that he will win, or is there something else we're looking at to determine that?
No, that doesn't necessarily tell us he's going to win. That just tells us they're less stressed if there's turnover. So one of the big things that I like to talk about is markets hate uncertainty. And so what that would mean is they're not as worried about being uncertain if Biden were to get elected. They're sort of expecting it. And so why markets hate uncertainty is when people become uncertain, they tend to sell stocks first and ask questions later. So if they're very worried about something and they're uncertain, they're going to sell. What we want to pay attention to going into the election is the market's performance. Based on the data I looked at, the 3 months heading into an election, if there's going to be turnover, the market pretty much does nothing. And then when there isn't going to be turnover, the market tends to be up about 5.5% going into an election from 3 months out. And I want to say that's successful in the neighborhood of like 92% of the time.
So Scott, we're inside of 3 months right now. What are the markets telling us right now in August? And then secondly, how does that coincide with what we've already talked about with respect to September being a time when there's often a sell-off and a slow time in the stock market?
So far in August, markets off to a pretty good start. We've had some nice gains. Now, whether or not that continues, we'll see. It certainly feels that way. September, we probably are going to see a slowdown. I would not be surprised at all. Again, people coming back from summer vacation tend to reset portfolios. Maybe they trim some stuff, get ready for what's going to happen in the fourth quarter, which tends to be some of the best quarterly gains of the year. So what also is going to happen, a big event coming potentially in October, is we're going to hear more data on coronavirus vaccine trials, in particular from Pfizer and BioNTech. They think they can have a full set of data ready by then. If that is the case, there could be potential of the FDA approving a drug if those trials are successful. I think that could be a big tailwind for the market. So there's a good chance we could see a pretty decent rally by the time the election rolls around at the beginning of November.
And that could potentially propel the incumbent back into office, which would be interesting. Now, I just want to bring up the fact that when Trump won election, the stock market just soared. And that is an example of the market being surprised. They didn't think he was going to win. They didn't predict he was going to win. They had priced in Hillary Clinton winning, as most people thought would happen. So how does that fit into your thesis about the S&P 500 and its relationship to predicting who wins the White House?
Sure. So what people may not necessarily have seen was the market tanked overnight when that result came out. S&P futures sold off massively. But then what happened was investors looked at that and they looked at Trump as being more of a pro-growth, pro-deregulation candidate, because that's what they typically think of the Republican Party, versus they look at the Democratic Party as being putting more taxes on businesses. And that's why we saw the massive rally pretty much until the coronavirus pandemic.
Okay. And we are seeing some signs that the coronavirus pandemic could even affect voting. If we start to see more of this, in-person balloting and mail-in balloting, how much are the markets watching how we get our election and the whole idea of securing our elections? All of these things are factors into whether we have confidence in the results. And I suspect confidence in the results of the election is also what the market's watching.
Yes, they definitely are. And what they're going to be worried about is if we do have massive mail-in voting, they're going to be worried about paralysis, because nobody's going to know the outcome for a while. It sort of reminds me of what we saw with the hanging Chad incident with Bush and Gore. That took time for that to be figured out. And I remember specifically, I worked on Wall Street at the time. Activity among institutions, it just died. Nobody did anything because they didn't know what to do. They didn't want to sell because they didn't know if a different administration was going to come in, if a Democrat was going to take control and we were going to see more taxes. And they didn't know if a Republican was going to maintain control and we weren't going to see more taxes. It was going to stay the way it was. So the market just, it didn't shut down, but it effectively just went quiet. Again, I think we're probably going to see some of that paralysis again, because I don't think this election is going to be as smooth. The result isn't going to be as smooth and as timely as people are hoping for.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against you on that one, Scott Garliss. For those of you who want to see much more of Scott's analysis and his team at the Newswire, please hover over your screen now. We'll give you a subscribe link. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.